Depending on how you look at it, the launch of Darktide was at best questionable and at worst deceitful. The launch of Darktide was overall better than Vermintide 2's, but the glaring flaws with Darktide's launch cannot and should not be overlooked just because the launch of a previous game was worse. We should not be complacent with adequacy or the bare minimum, but should want the best for not only us as consumers, but for Fatshark as a developer as well. What I say in this video does not come from a place of malice or anger. I say this because I care. Vermintide is a fantastic game created by fantastic people, and as a content creator, I got the privilege to directly interact with the creative minds behind both games and see the love they poured into both projects. I want nothing but the best for Fatshark and their projects, which is why I make this video in the first place. What I am about to say is targeted at a very small minority in the Warhammer community. You know who you are. It is never acceptable, under any circumstances, no matter how botched the Darktide launch is, or no matter how deceived or cheated you feel, to send death threats to Fatshark employees. Likewise, it is never acceptable to grief players in-game just over the fact that they bought premium cosmetics, citing the reason for abuse as they betrayed the player base. And anybody who does that in my community will be shown the door swiftly. Darktide has plenty of problems, and as consumers, it is our right to speak up about our dissatisfactions with the problems, but we can do so like adults in a cordial and respectful way. I expect everybody who watches this video in my community to act like that and have some basic human decency. And if you really don't think you can do that or should do that, then I say this with the utmost respect. Unsubscribe from my channel and get the fuck out. Darktide's launch was rough for many reasons, but there are a few that stand out far beyond the rest, the first of which being performance. Performance of the game varies wildly between users. Some people like myself are pretty much spared from the horrors of low frame rate and constant crashes, while others are plagued by them and are unable to play the game at all. Many choose to refund the game for this sole reason, which I can't blame them for, but to Fatshark's credit, this appears to be almost completely fixed after only a couple of hotfixes. During the beta, Fatshark promised over 70 weapons for us to play with on release. When the release day came, though, no additional weapons were added into the game, leaving us with the 65 or so weapons that are actually present within the game at this time. What's more, weapons that were specifically advertised within gameplay trailers, including Ogryn's Shockmaul and Psyker's two-handed sword, are nowhere to be found. This chart is a data mine of all the weapons in the game. The ones highlighted in red are confirmed missing, and I believe 2 of the 3 highlighted in blue are missing as well. Do I think Fatshark intentionally lied about the amount of weapons that were going to be in the game on release? No, but regardless of if they intended it or not, it doesn't look good. Crafting has also been promised as a core mechanic for months now, and right before the game launched, it was quietly announced in response to a question asked in the Darktide Discord server that crafting would not be completely available on release. There really isn't much to say about this. A core mechanic of a game should be in day one. The biggest problem, though, is the fact that the microtransaction store, Commodore's Vestures, was launched day one with seemingly no bugs or errors surrounding it. What's more is that the cash shop uses abusive pricing, currency conversion, and FOMO tactics which exist for the sole reason to make the consumers spend more. To be clear, I have no problem with microtransactions in games, even if the game itself is a paid game. A vast majority of games today are live service games, and games like A Plague Tale, where you just release the game and never touch it again until a sequel, is an archaic and outdated method for game development. Developers have to make money somehow, and I think paid cosmetics is a perfectly reasonable avenue to achieve that, but the way the cash shop is implemented in its current state, I just can't support. I originally defended Fatshark and said that they wouldn't ever do this, but as it turns out, I was wrong, and that makes me very sad. Now, is this necessarily the way that Fatshark wanted to add microtransactions into Darktide from the beginning? I really don't think so. If you look at games whose developers are either fully owned by or have shares of the company owned by Tencent, a conglomerate entertainment company, you begin to see some similarities in their microtransactions. Case in point, take a look at the shops of Darktide and Conan Exiles. They're not the same, but they are pretty similar. Fatshark has also said that they are looking into tightening in the microtransactions to be less predatory, as well as adding in a buy what you need button for the premium currency, and for their sake, I genuinely hope they do this. Finally, Fatshark announced premium currency would be able to be earned through in-game play, and this was reflected in their FAQ. When launch day came, though, this was not the case, and the FAQ was quietly changed. It's fair to assume that something changed between now and then, but attempting to hide it once again is not a good look. The burning question then is, where do we go from here? The core of Darktide's gameplay is incredibly fun. The maps are fantastic, the art is gorgeous, and the toys that we do have to play with are incredibly satisfying, but there still is a lot to be desired. The aforementioned issues are the most glaring, but there are still smaller issues that have to be fixed. Weapon imbalance, character imbalance, lack of careers, bugs, the way you get new weapons just being camping the store and praying to Ronald 2.0 that you get the weapon you want, and more. I can't find it anymore, but in an interview with a press company, Fat Shark said that they never intended to deceive anyone, and I believe that. I don't think they genuinely intended to mislead or trick anyone with these mistakes, but to people who are not familiar with Fat Shark like I am, have no reason to believe that Fat Shark is anything but deceitful. Fat Shark missed the mark with this launch, and in typical Fat Shark fashion, they will fix the game to be amazing in 6 months to a year, but the question is, are you willing to wait for it? I know I am, but if you aren't and decide to leave, either temporarily or permanently, I can't fault you.